Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Those very well-known words are from the Apostle Paul in the book of Philippians, and that's where I want us to go next in our study and consideration of the subject of joy. Welcome. Glad you're with us. In the book of Philippians, what's going on? Paul's in prison unjustly. He's there because he was serving Christ faithfully. And if anybody ever had a right to feel bitter, and you know the world kind of conditions people to think they've got rights to feel bitter, whether they do or not. If anybody was ever in that position, a lot of people say it had to be Paul. He had served God faithfully. He had allowed himself to be persecuted, beaten, been through all kinds of travail for and with the Lord in his ministry. And here he is. He could say to himself, now, isn't this a fine howdy do? Look where I've ended up after all this service to the Lord here in this stinking, rotting Roman jail. I'm rotting away. And is this my reward? Is this what I get for serving the Lord? I think all of us could use a good, long, hard look at Paul and study the attitude as expressed in the book of Philippians. Philippians is a short book, and yet in that short book, he mentions some form of the word joy 16 times. I did a little research on this, and in total, some form of the word joy, joyful, rejoicing, joyfully, words like that occur over 400 times in the Bible. But on average, if you averaged all those out with all the chapters of the Bible, it's used about once every 3 chapters. In these 4 chapters of Philippians, it's used 16 times. What's going on with Paul? How can he be so joyful in the midst and the face of all this suffering he's having to do for the Lord? He had learned the real meaning of having a relationship with God, and that's why this very important phrase, and it's one of those, again, look at it carefully. Don't just quote it and kind of let it mindlessly fly by, but think, what's he saying? Rejoice in the Lord. I want to suggest something to you. I want to be careful, and I want to ask you to be careful when you're listening, because this could be misunderstood. I don't want this to come across as presumptuous or arrogant or any of those things, but a person cannot really understand and have joy, at least not the joy that the Bible's talking about, that we've been talking about so far in this series, without being in the Lord. He did say, rejoice in the Lord. And from other writings, we know Paul talked about what it means to be in Christ. And that phrase, rejoice in the Lord, occurs many times through the Bible, particularly in the book of Psalms. And what does it mean to rejoice in the Lord? It means the basic meaning of it is you have a relationship with God. Here's the part that I don't want to be misunderstood, because a lot of people think, well, you Christians, you look down your nose and you think you're so great and everything. A person who really understands Christ and Christianity understands that there are sinners saved by grace, and they shouldn't and really should work at not ever looking down or judging anybody else, but really saying, hey, I have been so blessed, so fortunate in my life to come to know about the Lord. I'd like for you to know about him too, because, man, that's the way to live. To rejoice in the Lord, though, it means you have a relationship with God, and I don't believe you can experience the joy, not really, without that relationship. This is why the world, I think, so readily accepts the confusion that we've been talking about between joy and happiness. If real joy that's going to last no matter what the circumstances are around it, and you think about Paul, everything was rotten, and yet he's rejoicing. He's talking about being content and looking forward to either staying there with the brethren and ministering to them or going on to heaven. It doesn't matter. He's just going to rejoice, whatever. Even people were using his being in prison against him. Did he get mad and bitter about that? No, he rejoiced. We'll continue this more, what it means to rejoice in the Lord, and that how having a right relationship with God must be in place if you're going to really learn how to rejoice. See you next time.